Hey team, welcome back to a very exciting episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and today I am joined by Eli Cheatham. She is the Chief Strategic Initiatives Officer with International Farming. This is going to be a burner. You guys are in for a good one. So welcome to the show, Eli. I'm
Thank
super
you, Mark.
excited.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be fantastic. All right, you get the same first question everybody gets.
Okay.
What does it mean for you to be intentional?
For me, when I was thinking about intentionality leading up to up to this call, I thought about, for me, it's about creating space and time. It's about giving myself the ability to be proactive and almost this idea of like a co-creator of the future versus being on my heels and more reactionary to what's being thrown at me. And the more that I can create that time in that space, the better I am as a leader and really just as a human in general.
Yeah, beautiful. Wherever you guys are at right now, just pause, rewind about 30 seconds and listen to what Eli just said. There's maybe even a voiceover for your next TikTok with some pictures of you with your kids. Like just really like taking us. I mean, I love the answer. It's fantastic. And man, thank you for sharing that little bit with us. It's such a great answer. And I think about the idea of actually taking time. This has been one of the biggest challenges, especially with the men that I work with, myself included, actually slowing down and taking time.
Well, I think that unfortunately, I noticed it too as a mother, as well as in business, but that for some, there's like this badge of honor of being busy,
Mm-hmm.
and of not caring for yourself and not sleeping. And I think that it really does a lot of harm, you
Yeah,
know.
it does. Yeah, it becomes the badge of honor. My wife and I talk about this a lot. We call it the emotional home.
Mm.
Right? So the emotional home is grind. When the emotional home is get up, work hard, sleep less, do all the things. That becomes the comfortable norm, and it's very hard to move from that. And the unfortunate downside, this is the thing we say about intention all the time, is all the times in life I've become the most resentful are always because of the times in life I've been the least intentional.
Oh, that's a great point.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it really does require, right, that time. And that's the most challenging thing has been for me. I've been studying intention and intentional leadership now for a year and a half straight, and really slowing down and making yourself block time to be able to make more of your time is the key. But that's tough. It's a busy world. We got a lot going
And
on.
you said that about like blocking time to make time. And I think that that's been one of the biggest lessons for me, is that there's certain things that I can do that don't take time for me. They give me so much time because they give me so much more like clarity and groundedness,
Yep.
that then the rest of my day it flows a lot more. And so I'm in a much better place to be decisive and to be present and decisive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all would rather follow somebody who's grounded rather than somebody who's chaotic. Big time. Eli, tell us about you in international farming and all the things. You guys have so much going on, and people need to hear about it. So let's talk about that.
Sure. So international farming is a food sourcing solutions platform. What that means is that we're in agriculture and growing. We also invest in vertically integrated agribusinesses and innovative technology as well, that support farmers and help them to to borrow one of your words, to thrive.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And how long? Give us a little bit of background and how did you get involved with it? And we wouldn't tell us all the things.
Yeah.
Take your
So
time.
uh, IF was started in 2009, actually, by my husband, who is a seventh generation farmer. And he grew up, working the fields, and then went off to New York to spend some time more focused in real estate investing. And he found that he was really being drawn back to the land and saw a need for people to be able to invest in farmland in a more diversified manner. And so began some funds to do just that, mainly focused in the US. But now we also have farms in Australia and do some work in Chile as well. And so have the investment management side to it. And then also we either invest or build our own ag tech as well that's really focused on traceability and transparency, trying to streamline the supply chain, but then also just make it so people really know where their food came from and all that went into that.
Absolutely. I think there's certainly so many intentional opportunities with that. I mean, food is just it's the thing that brings us all together, right? It's just the one thing that we gather around for the Thanksgiving, or we gather around the family table. It's so important. And there's a lot of holes too, right? In the whole, I mean, food supply chain and, different places. It's not necessarily the same everywhere you go and every demographic and everything. So, and there are a lot of people that my wife is one of them who wants to know more about where did that thing come from, whether there was the strawberry or the pork chop or whatever the case may be, right? There are those that want to know more. And I think there's a lot of opportunities with that also for education. I have an ag ed degree, so I'm always passionate about how can we help people learn more about where their food comes from as well.
I think that it is something that people are really calling for, right? To feel reconnected to their food and to know that it was sourced in a sustainable way. And the food supply chain has been so complicated for so many years, and there are all these twists and turns that it takes that honestly perhaps it doesn't need to. And one of the challenges of having it too complicated is one, people feel very disconnected to their food and oftentimes aren't getting as high a quality too, because it's been, stored for too long or just has taken too long of a road. The other is that it constantly, with each complication or each turn that it takes, it's really more money out of a farmer's pocket. So you may know the statistics. I now say it, and more often than not, people actually know the answer. But if you think about a dollar that is earned on a piece of produce or whatever is being sold, how much of that do you think a farmer gets? And do you know?
It's a very, very small number.
Yeah. So it is a small number, and it certainly depends too on what the crop is. But from what we've seen more consistently than not, it's around 7 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
And when you think about just how imperative that food is and just the effort and care that goes into creating it, I get really excited about finding ways to get more of that money into the pockets of the farmers.
Beautiful. I'm sure plenty of farmers will get excited about that. Get excited about that as well, especially in a year like this year, where in a lot of ways, commodity prices have been down, interest rates have been higher, access to capital has been more challenging. To put crops in the ground, things like that. And from a farming perspective, every year is you're putting everything on the line. Expecting, waiting, hoping, for an optimal crop. And so I think anybody that's advocating for the farmer, that's trying to help put a little bit more, in their pocket at the end of the day is a friend of the industry for sure.
Well, farming certainly is not for the weak of heart, right? I mean, there are just so many things that can happen along the path of a harvest, right? Or just of
absolutely
what you're growing, that you think you have this amazing crop, and then there's a hailstorm. There are just so many things that can happen. And with climate change and other things, it's getting harder.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your business. I want to talk about international farming, your people a little bit. A lot of people in the industry for a long time have struggled to find good talent. You guys are innovating though and doing some interesting things. So I'm wondering for the listeners, what's working for you guys from a talent attraction, retention, finding people that are interested in your mission.
Yeah. Well, I think that being very clear on what your mission is and making sure that you live it out in every aspect of what you're doing is one way that really helps in building a strong culture and maintaining a really strong talent pool.
Mm.
So I also think that people really want to connect and they want to feel like they're working on something bigger than themselves,
Yeah.
and to know that a company cares too. So this last year, one thing that we did was that we spent time talking to people and we asked them what they cared about, and you know said, we want to give back to the community. We think that community alliances are incredibly important. Like what should our focus be? Help us get even more clear about that, and then help us also to decide who we're gonna work with this next year, is
Mm-hmm.
having people feel a part of those decisions. Because I mean, our farmers, or our ag services team knows far better than I do about local community organizations that
Sure.
are doing something, doing really important work. And so to really be able to hear from them was helpful. And I think it created a common goal and vision
Mm-hmm.
within our company.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned having something bigger than ourselves to play into. I know you guys are passionate about serving local communities and getting engaged that way. So what more specifically are you guys doing that way to engage with communities and give your employees opportunities to help out?
Yeah. So we've handled it in a couple ways. One is
Mm-hmm.
that we have within the local communities that we farm, we have specialists who I'm trying RAMs, regional agronomy managers, or something like that. I probably should know that off the top of my head, but our RAMs, we gave them a certain amount of pool for them to
Mm.
specifically choose what to give to, and
Oh,
seeing,
cool.
knowing and understanding the need of those organizations. But overarchingly, we came up with certain things that we really wanted to focus on, which was food security, environmental stewardship, and
Mm-hmm.
then also growing a strong and diverse workforce within
Mm-hmm.
agriculture.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So,
Very cool. I like this. So you guys are actually giving your local folks some sort of a budget, right, where they can actually go and allocate that capital, allocate those funds to the organizations or local organizations that can put that to work. So very cool.
you
I
know,
like the approach.
thinking of intentionality
Mhm.
and and kind of looking back on time and ways that you do things well, and then you also need to be reminded. When we were first starting the company, uh, I guess about 15 years ago, there was a real desire to have stewardship and to have I don't love the word philanthropy, but it's what's coming to my mind right now. So
Yeah, yeah,
we'll
yeah.
just use it. But to be a main focus, right? And this real belief that you can, you know, do well while doing good.
Mhm.
Like you can be profitable and sustainable at the same time. And we certainly did that through the decisions that we made, but we didn't there was a period of time where we didn't have a very clear community alliances focus.
Mhm.
There were so many things, just other things that were cropping up that we needed to focus on, and so I am very happy and proud that this last year we really pulled it all together and
Sure.
and looked at what had worked in the past, and then also allocated more funds and more time and resources to being very strategic about the impact that we can have.
Mm-hmm. Well, from an intentional leadership standpoint, one thing I would love to hear more people talking about is being okay and giving themselves permission and their company's permission and their people permission to do well while doing good. Right? The business can thrive and be healthy while we're also engaged in our communities and helping out. I don't care if it's your FFA chapter or your 4-H or your food shelf or pantry or whatever. I mean, there's, that just we have there's more abundance than not in,
Oh, absolutely.
you know.
Sure.
So, but sometimes we get a little bit scarcity minded, and we have to coach people beyond that. So good, you guys are setting a great example there. Well, let's talk about culture a little bit. You guys are growing an organization. You've got, I think we talked about a good number of people that you guys have working for you now, helping to grow this vision that are a part of the mission. So, how are you putting intentionality into the culture building for your company?
One is really creating opportunities for people to connect in this new hybrid world, right? You have to be more intentional. So we did things like instate two monthly meetings. One is what we call our Nexus meeting, which is where we bring different speakers. Either we had an amazing North Carolina-based artist who all of her work is around diversity. All of her artwork is around diversity in the workforce, especially the experience of Black women in the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And so she came and lectured and shared her art for everyone. We've had Taylor Keene, who is the founder of Sacred Seed, who his work is around sharing Indigenous wisdom in environmentalism and agriculture. Come speak. We are right now doing a book club on the book Dare to Lead, which you probably are familiar
Brene
with.
Brown, yeah, of course.
Brene Brown. So we'll speak on that. So creating those where we're all coming together to grow as people, and that's more of the goal than getting into the weeds of the business. So we have those meetings, and then we have another meeting during the month that is our OKR meeting. So it's more about accountability and checking in and really staying connected on where we're going. And my dad used to always tell me, like, the saying, if you're doing good, that's great. If you're doing bad, that's fine. If you don't know, that's bad. So to really try regularly to really get engaged on, like, where we know where we want to be, but where are we actually? And like, what's working and what's not? So we have those meetings, and then we have what we call our Raleigh weeks, where everyone comes. About 50% of our organization is based in the Triangle, and then the rest is all spread out all over, oftentimes near some of our main farms. And so bringing them all together, we try to do that quarterly. So we get a week together.
Oh, cool. Very good. Well, one of the things we always advise is having a cadence, knowing what's your cadence for coaching, what's your cadence for bringing your people together, because you mentioned it right at the onset, Eli, just in this hybrid world, we don't get to sort of have that touch and feel connection often enough. And it's not even that we don't worried about people not doing their work at home. It's like we worry about them doing it alone.
Yes.
Right? And feeling that way,
Yeah.
It's very easy for us to paint ourselves into a corner in our minds and think like, hey, nobody could be screwing this up worse than I am right now. And here I am alone and I got to figure it out. And we shut down, and we don't share. And we often spend more time being afraid of a negative outcome than we could just actually solve it, in a conversation. So you have to have those people you trust.
Yes, absolutely. To really keep that communication open. And like you said, to make sure people aren't getting kind of lost in themselves or their silos even. You could be doing awesome work in what you're directly connected to, but if you don't know what's going on in other aspects of the business, you could miss an opportunity to really add value in a broader way.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Well, good stuff. Let's learn more about you. Let's transition here.
Okay.
That's it's good to talk organization and community and vision and all those things. Those are great. But what has been the biggest hurdle, Eli, that you've had to overcome in your career?
Oh, yeah. Um, I think the biggest hurdle I've had to overcome is self-doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, feeling I I grew up with undiagnosed learning differences and went to an incredibly challenging school for even the most academic. And I think that if you learn differently or kind of a just out of the box thinker in general, occasionally you can end up leaving with a negative tape around your intellect or your ability to add value. And so I think that one of the hurdles that I have done a lot of work around is really learning to trust myself, learning to trust my wiring, and the fact that it actually can be like one of my greatest assets
Mm-hmm.
when I look at it in the right way.
Beautiful. I love that. I mean, honestly, I mean, being able to overcome self doubt. So, in our Thriving Leader program, we teach the difference between leading indicators and lagging indicators. And this is really important because most people are measuring the lagging, which is, it's already done. We can't, now we're just being reactive, right? So, we try to solve for more problems by coaching people to use leading indicators. One of those is certainty.
Yes. Oh,
So, and we can coach to certainty. We can help people learn and grow and quickly gain a greater level of certainty with the right coaching, the right tools, keeping promises to yourself, things like this help grow your certainty every day.
yes.
Um, but learning to trust yourself, right? There's a great way, to learn to grow your certainty. Hey team, please forgive this quick intrusion into the podcast, but I have a really important announcement that I want everybody to get their earballs on, and that is that we have an upcoming Thriving Leader event coming up August 21st and 22nd. The Thriving Leader is our flagship program. We have run this thing over 135 times across the broad scope of agriculture. Thousands of people have gone through this and our coaching programs, and our public events each year are free. We only run 2 of these per year because of that. And your next chance to get access is coming up on August 21 and 22. The next one will not be until 2025. So we hope to see you. It's in Kansas City. Head on over to thriving-leader.com. That's thriving-leader.com. You get all the details and to book a meeting to see how you can get free access for you and some of your team coming up at the Thriving Leader in Kansas City, Missouri, August 21st and 22nd, 2024. We'll see you there. What about biggest win for you? What's been the biggest win?
Well, I think it's hard to choose one big win, but I do have one that feels somewhat recent that was really special to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was we, for the last 3 years, have done a food summit. And the first 2 years, I was not involved in it. And it was more of like it was more ag tech and very niche, which
Mm-hmm.
I think added a ton of value to the people who came. When I chose to get more involved, it felt really important to me to broaden who we were speaking to and to perhaps make it feel more relevant to a broader group. And so we pulled together a really diverse and exciting group of people. And, I'm really grateful to our team who trusted me because it was definitely out of the box. I mean, we had somebody come speak about like tree burial and I mean, lots of more like technological things, but just a very, very broad group. And it was really a special couple days. Like it was very powerful. And I was very proud of the conversations that were taking place and the fact that we just had a part in bringing those brilliant minds together. I think that a lot can be accomplished when you get the right people in the room, and you make sure that that every voice is heard, and that there's a balanced representation of ideas and backgrounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so people, we're writing letters after, and emails saying how much they enjoyed it and when were we going to do it again. And it felt good. It was a win. So
Yeah.
we'll have to make sure that you come next time.
Absolutely. Yes. I would love to. And I tell you what, I mean, being in the event space, this is something we work really hard on, is to make sure that our live training events are not like other corporate training events. That has been our key differentiator since we started 11 years ago. And when you just nail it, when it just goes off and people are like so grateful for having come in, and we're in the corporate training business. So most people are not happy when they show up. I'll be really honest. Right. So we have a big mountain to overcome in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But when we knock it out of the park and 2 days later, they're thanking their boss, or we have 90% of the room sign up for our coaching programs or something like that. I mean, it just feels right. So I can feel the emotion in your voice talking through it. Yep. Absolutely. Who's been somebody that you've really looked up to?
I think that throughout my career, there have been multiple people, and they've been people that you would not recognize their names, but
Sure.
the thing but there were definitely characteristics that were shared. One was that they seemed very authentic, that they weren't trying to be someone they weren't. And they also were able to be very present and consistent. That was definitely traits of somebody, of people that I liked, people who were able to have that balance of being really passionate about what they were doing and also have an energy of calm that you felt good in their in their space, right? Like you felt like they were doing really good things and that you could trust them. Those were the people that I really gravitated towards.
Yeah, I really like that. I want to go down a little rabbit trail with you just about that, because my observation has been, and this is why we work so hard to help leaders work on themselves from the inside out. And the observation has been that there are certain people, like we just gravitate right to that individual. And maybe we can't even put a word on it, but it's like, I felt really safe working for that person. I felt really empowered working for that person. I felt that person really made me want to do better. And I'm thinking there's like 3 people popping into my mind right now that were there when I was a kid, that either made an opportunity happen or they called me up to a higher level of participation. I'm thinking of one girl at an FFA camp years ago who just picked up a ball and threw it to me because I was sitting by myself on a log. Right. And like that little thing, that little moment of inspiration, like she got me engaged, and then I got really engaged in the whole event. And then these people there became my friends for the next 4 years, went to university with them, all the things. So, you don't really know who you are to that person, but it's important that you be who you are.
So true.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good stuff. What I know we're pushing up on our half hour here, but I want to make sure that we get some more goods in here. So I think you bring a little bit unique perspective from a lot of my guests. So I love this. So what books or podcasts, resources do you suggest people be listening to or taking in?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned earlier the fact that as a company, we're reading Dare to Lead, which I have enjoyed. Another one that we read last year was The Art of Possibility.
Hmm.
It is written actually by a wife and husband who she is a psychotherapist, and he is the let me get this right, the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic.
Oh, wow.
And the whole idea is that the book begins with this story of him going to Whitewater Raft for the first time. And
Mhm.
then he's driving there and that on this bus, and that the person keeps saying, what do you do when you fall out of the boat? And it's like, if I remember correctly, it's like, knees to nose and something else, right?
Mhm.
And he said that like after a while he was getting so annoyed, right? Like, why is this person saying this over and over and over again? Fast forward, he falls out of the boat. And, he doesn't know what's up, what's down. But because he had heard that so much,
Mhm.
he did it. And it's what saved him, right? And that
Yeah.
as a company, you need to have these like kind of slogans that
Mhm.
like when you feel like you've lost sight of the boat, when you're disoriented, that you can come back to, and that they're so ingrained in you that you can turn to them when you feel lost.
Yeah.
And so I think that they gave 12 different ones. And
Mm.
I thought it was a really good book. I enjoyed it and would suggest it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm going to write that one down. The Art of Possibility is what it's called.
Yeah.
Very good. I love that idea. It's just as you describe it, I was pretty sure I knew where you're going with that about, just explaining over and over again, here's the thing we do. And, that's important in a lot of ways, but, I'm thinking, safety training and stuff like that within an agricultural company, but also like, your people, I'm speaking not to you, but to the listeners, your people are, like your salespeople who are out there talking to farmers and they're getting kind of twisted around backwards in the conversation. Like those trainings on some of those little things that can just help them find their way out. Or we teach a very simple objection handling model. Right?
Yes.
Like 3 or 4 steps. It's super easy to remember. It's called ACAVE, ACAVE, right? Acknowledge, clarify, answer, verify, and it's just like boom, 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 right? And the more we drill on it, the more it actually gives that young person usually certainty to be able to not know all the answers, but to bring it back into a conversation and
I feel like you have tools.
exactly, just something to fall back on. So to me, intentional leaders have those little frameworks or sayings, quotes, resources, etc., intentionally teach in their organizations so that their people have that. And the unintentional ones are usually throwing their employees a set of truck keys and say, we'll see you on Friday.
Yeah. Figure it out. Yeah,
Figure it out.
we recently went through, and we had in the past had values, just like one word values. And what we found was that we realized that it would be helpful to make them more of a sentence and give an example of how it would look.
Mm.
And so we created what we call our how we sew. And it's just a couple phrases of like who we are as a company. And we also create opportunities for people to acknowledge when people are living by one of these. And also I've been in meetings and I'm like, hey, like this is like, does this align? Like we're trying to decide between one and the other, which one lives up to these more. And so it's really become a part of our common decision making and has been really positive for us.
Yeah, very good. I like that. I like that approach. Cool. Well, what do you do to keep your energy up?
I
You,
meditate.
you meditate.
I
Okay. I like it.
meditate. Yeah.
I'm in. Tell me more.
Well, it's funny. I grew up with kind of hippie parents who
Mhm.
were into meditation, and I thought they were very weird. Like
Mm.
very weird growing up. And fast forward, I'm like, my kids think I'm very weird because the same thing. But I think that meditation really is the number one thing for me. I think for other people, it's exercise,
Mm.
or eating healthy, or lots of journaling. But meditation is the thing for me that slows things down, that gets me recentered, and allows me to have more space and more intentionality.
Beautiful.
That's
Such a,
my main thing that I'm religious about. And it's interesting. My parents first got into meditation though, because my father read an article in the New York Times on how it could help him with business.
interesting.
And so I think that there's a really strong tie through like being able to be centered and be a productive leader.
Mhm. Yeah. I have an afternoon practice, which usually is around like 1 or 2 o'clock, where I just will go and I just go like horizontal. Like I don't care. It could be a floor, it could be the bed, doesn't matter. I just like I go and I tune out for 20 minutes. And then as soon as
The
I come back
reset,
in,
right?
like it's a complete reset. I feel like it really resets my brain chemistry. And then from say 2:30 to 5, 6, however long the day goes, I just feel like I get more for my time.
Absolutely. The more for your time. And that's so true. I experienced the same thing.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people probably have a negative association, or just they don't know how to, so it seems weird, or like, oh, I can't be quiet. I'm like, yeah, you can learn. If I learned, you can learn. It's just the videos are out there. You can download the Calm app or anything, Headspace, whatever, to get started. There's lots of ways to do it, but it's one of those core behaviors. We actually teach a little bit about it, and then just give people the option to track that in our behavior tracker, so they can go in and put together for themselves an intentional protocol for themselves.
We had somebody come and at one of our Nexus meetings that I mentioned before and
Mm-hmm.
speak on like mindfulness and mindfulness meditation. And it was a really great lesson for me as a leader, because I had felt I had really wanted to share this, but had in my mind thought that there were going to be certain people in the company that maybe wouldn't have been receptive to it. And I had this story in my head about that. And what was fascinating to me was those people that I had created the story in my head about were actually the people who wrote me afterwards
Mm-hmm.
and said how much they had enjoyed it. So I think that sometimes we we limit our how should I say it? I had created, well, I guess I can just say I'd created this story about who this person was and what they were going to like and what they
Yeah, we
want.
create the
And
story.
instead I was wrong. I mean, I just was
Yeah.
wrong. So,
Yep. Yep. We do that often. By the way, that's a really good pro tip for anybody listening, right? When you get stuck in these stories about all the people around you, right?
mm,
It's important to understand like the process. We actually, so we like I kid you not, we teach in our Thriving Leader program a framework called the story framework,
yeah,
which is I didn't know this when I wrote it, but it is very closely associated with cognitive behavioral theory. And the idea is just understanding like when I get triggered. Okay, so there's a person who seems to maybe have a different set of beliefs than I do, as an example. So it's very easy for me to have a certain thought and feeling sequence based on what I think of that person, or what what I think they're triggering in me, right? And so based on that feeling, that's typically how I act or react.
sure.
And it's very easy to, every time I see someone like that, I get stuck in a story. And
Yes.
as I'm circling my finger around, it's a cycle.
And being able again, like I feel a little bit like a broken record in this, but it's been so helpful for me being able to have a little bit of space
Yep.
to then be able to see that I'm in that loop or
Mm-hmm.
like that it is a story versus if I don't have that space, then I just believe it as fact, right?
Yep. And there you bring it full circle back to approximately 40 minutes ago when we started the interview. We said, what is intention? What does it mean for you to be intentional, right? It's been creating the space,
Yeah,
right? What
exactly.
uh what a great way to bring it for full circle. I love it. All right, last couple of questions. So what's the biggest thing that you want to improve on this year?
The I was doing some work yesterday around priorities and things that were coming up for me to see where some patterns were or some blind spots. And I was acknowledging that um, sometimes my to-do list felt daunting. But when I looked into it, what I realized was that oftentimes it's because I am not always clear on who something belongs to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so when I am taking on too much or trying to like, I like to say like lovingly control, but it's still controlling, right? Like,
Sure. Yep.
and so to be even more clear and intentional about like staying in my lane and really trusting other people's ability to
Mm.
do the same, because it's very counterproductive for everyone involved if I, you know, if I get more into that, like micromanaging. And to be totally honest, that's I'm probably better about not micromanaging professionally than I am about not micromanaging my family. But I
Sure.
think it's a lesson over this year that I think that I can improve on everywhere.
Yeah, I get you. I think that's a big one for everybody. How can we get more out of the way, empower others around us by not controlling, not, not I just with my kids last night, my wife and I went on a little Sunday date night because she's out of town all this week. We're not going to see each other till the weekend. So we said, make sure date night's a priority for us. So we always hit it at least once a week. And so we went on Sunday night, which is not normal. Usually it's kind of just whole family night. And I went to the kids. I'm like, so at like 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon, I said, so I'm going to be leaving about 5. Y'all are in charge of your own supper.
Yeah.
I want that. My requirement is that it's balanced. Let me know what you're going to make. And, but I didn't have to go do it for them. I didn't go back and really check up on it. After when I got home, I said, what'd you guys have for dinner? But, and they did a good job, right? They had a good, healthy, balanced meal and everything was good. But, it just feels good to know that your people, I don't care if it's your kids or your employees, they're progressing. And my wife and I are in a process right now of evaluating everything that's on the calendar and eliminating anything that's not in the top 20% of productivity. Yeah. So if it's not the top 20% of revenue generation or production or the things that really matter the most to lead our business to the next level, we're going through a growth phase. And so we have to. So as we start to bring on more people, well, what do we have them do? Well, the things that are not in our 20%. Right. And then we teach them to do the same thing. Right. And it's sort of, that's how we scale the business over time. And it works really, really well for us.
Yeah. Keep people like within their zone of genius as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. Good. All right. Last question, and then I'll open it up for you after that to share anything else that you want us to learn about international farming or anything that you guys are doing, and I'll leave the floor open here a little bit. But I'm assuming you guys are tuned into this because you're reading Brené right now. But how important is vulnerability and being able to create that intentional work environment?
I think that vulnerability is a word that years ago, it was a word that people didn't want because they didn't want the danger of being vulnerable, right? It was seen as weakness. And now sometimes I feel like vulnerability can be a word that instead people use as like an excuse to almost like overshare, and more dump, which I don't think is productive either. But like at its root, this vulnerability for me is being honest, accepting my humanness, and creating a space where people can come as themselves, including myself, and that to me is just absolutely crucial for all aspects of life, within a relationship, within a company. It's also kind of what makes it worthwhile, right?
So absolutely. There's so much that we get to see of people, about people, and even about ourselves when we lower the guard just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that too, that lowering of the guard, there is this understanding of like why people have it, and of becoming a person that earns the right for people to put their guard down too, right? And also being a person who can discern at what level you share your story, or like yourself, right? You can have different levels, I think, of vulnerability and like authenticity that different people get.
Yeah,
That maybe
absolutely.
went a little more esoteric and,
Yeah.
psychology than business leadership, but that's my thought around that.
Well, they all play together, and I think
Yeah,
that's
for
a
sure.
little bit of our theme in the conversation today. So, Eli, as we bring it in for landing, what would you want people to know about what you guys are doing, or anything else that you feel like sharing? Feel free to the floor is yours before we and please end up with how we get in touch.
Yeah, thank you. Well, one thing that I shared a little bit about was the corporate alliances that we have done this last year. And I just am really impressed by these organizations. And so just wanted to share a little bit about them, especially because a good bit, I don't know how much of the people who listen are North Carolina based, but a lot of these organizations are. One is a Place at the Table, which is a pay what you can restaurant in Raleigh that has delicious food and gives people. One of the main focuses that Maggie Kane had when she started was that she didn't just want to feed people, she wanted to also give them the dignity of choice to really actually go in and say what they wanted to eat, to be able to then either work a shift to pay for it,
Mhm.
or to find other ways that it was more empowering than some other ways of being other organizations that were helping to feed people. And they actually come in and do some of our catering. The food is delicious, so
Oh,
that's
wow.
really nice. And then we've partnered with two organizations through NC State. One is called Boots on the Ground, and it works with veterans as they're coming back into coming back from their service. And I was really interested to learn that about 200,000 people leave the military and return to civilian life a year. And the problem is that far too often what happens is that they return to like a lack of support and opportunity.
Mhm.
And then you have agriculture and you have farming and ranching, where you actually have a real shortage of people in the workforce.
Yeah,
And so it is doing an apprenticeship to train veterans in those in farming and ranching. And
fantastic.
there's so many skills that they learned in the military that made them successful there that really translate over. So we recently did a farm tour of two farms actually that are within that apprenticeship program, which was
Oh,
really
cool.
special. Yeah, and then another thing that I was interested to learn was how often, especially when people are in grad school, how often people end up having to leave their studies for, because they've had something crop up in their life and they need like $3,000. These aren't like huge sponsorships. We created like a pool for grad students, that when they have a life challenge, that it can just be this bridge almost to let them stay in school and to like stay on the path of their of really where they want to go. And so those two are through NC State as
Beautiful.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. You guys are very, very, very community focused. I like it.
Well, it's we made the decision, and I say this with a little bit of a smile, because I oftentimes go back to the word partnership, but because it's so ingrained in me. But we made a shift to try to use the word alliances instead of partnerships now as much as possible, because I believe that it has just an added focus on like a shared like a common goal and vision, and really this idea of wanting all involved to thrive. And so we've been using that term a lot, and I've liked that shift.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, Eli, where do we go to find out more about international farming and all the amazing things you guys are doing?
Yeah. Well, I would say that probably the two best ways are to just check out our website, internationalfarming.com, and then also to follow us on LinkedIn.
Very good. Consider it done. We will link it up and send people your way. This has been fascinating and fantastic. Thank you for the
Well,
time and being on the show with us.
well, thank you so much for having me, and for the work that you're doing. I think that it's really, really important to tell people's stories and
Mhm.
to really help. As you said in the beginning, I was reading some about this. The goal to help people survive less and thrive more
Hmm.
throughout
Yeah.
all of business and life is a really noble profession and goal.
Yeah. Well, I have this. I've had a lot of life experiences that have led me to understand, that we really do only get one opportunity to do this. And given the options, why do we allow ourselves to survive more than when we could be thriving more? So that has been the cornerstone of our mission since day one, 11 years ago. So thank you for noticing that and for saying something. And been a fascinating conversation. Thanks for being on.
Well, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.